Hey, all, welcome to my channel. Today, I don't want to say I'm going to rant, but just going to talk about the Knicks. I mean, last two games, they were going against the well, not yesterday. Yesterday was against the Sacramento Kings, and then 2 days ago they were going against Charlotte. I mean, they were on an 8 game winning streak, and they were going against Charlotte. That's a game they should have won. Granted, Brunson wasn't there, but still, a lot of their starters were still there. Outside of Brunson, you still had Hart, you still had Randall, and you still had R.J. Barrett. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, granted, they just come out of beating the Boston Celtics, in double overtime. Very tiresome, very tiring game. Probably mentally, was draining. But at the same time, they had that extra day of rest. Nowadays, with the NBA games, you have a day of rest. So, it doesn't explain entirely as to why the Knicks lost to the Charlotte Hornets. But that should have been enough to recoup at that point. Honestly, with the with rest and such after the Boston game. But they lost. If it comes down to the fact that on in the playoffs, playing at home versus playing at away for home court advantage, it plays a big factor by one or two guys, especially if they're playing against the Cleveland Cavaliers. If they're playing against the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is what it looks like, and it's Donovan Mitchell shooting a free throw either at home in Cleveland or in Madison Square Garden, which would you rather have him do when you're a minute or 30 seconds to the game, anyways? Where would you have him shoot those free throws? In Madison Square Garden or in Cleveland? Or vice versa, Randall or Brunson. So that home court advantage will play a factor. So the fact that if they were down by one game for getting the fourth seed, this game, the game of Charlotte, plays a huge factor. And then the fact that they lost to Sacramento Kings. Granted, yeah, the Sacramento Kings are up and coming. Yeah, I mean, they're doing really well now. They're playing really, really well now. To the point where they'll play into either the play-ins or, well, most likely the play-ins more than anything else. And it's a team like the number 1 or 2 seeds might be a little bit concerning us playing against them, because the way they're playing right now, I'd be a little hesitant too. But honestly, the Knicks should have won that game, not only against Charlotte, but at least with Sacramento for sure. Brunson was there and they didn't win. Now, granted, I'll take the fact that it might have been because of, maybe the fact that travel caused an issue. But honestly, I don't think that was the case. This should have been a game that they should have won, and they didn't. I think this is on them. The onus is on them basically at this point, because quite honestly, I'll be upfront. If the Knicks do get the 5th seed and they're down by, and they had a shot to be the number 4 seed against Cleveland, whether it be by 2 games or 1 game, or 3 games for that matter, then you're going to look at this past week, basically. These past 3 games. Now, the question is, will they be able to beat the Clippers? It's hard to say. I mean, the way Westbrook is playing with the Clippers, they're not gelling as well. So, Saturday, the Knicks should theoretically win. But because Kawhi Leonard and PG are playing, it might be a different story. And then again, they're playing against the Lakers on Sunday. Now, the question is, will they be able to beat the Lakers on Sunday? Highly doubtful the way AD is playing, Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is playing really well that I don't think the Knicks are going to beat the Lakers. If they do, it'd be by some miracle. Well, I don't want to say miracle, but it'd be some form of strategy that Thibodeau played, to go against them. Same thing with the Clippers. Honestly, if they lose to the Clippers, I'll say this: they had the shot to beat basically Charlotte, Sacramento, and the Clippers. If they beat these 3 teams, and maybe the Lakers too, for that matter, the Knicks set themselves up really well and positioned themselves really well for the 4th seed, maybe even the 3rd seed, to be quite honest too. I mean, granted, you got Boston and Philly and Milwaukee. Milwaukee being number 1, but in reality, if the Knicks were to go on a serious winning streak, it might be a different story. But realistically speaking, we know that's not happening. So, honestly, this is on the Knicks. this is just me ranting a little bit. I mean, honestly, I'll say this: if the Knicks drop from 5 to the 6th seed, then this is Thibodeau probably overworking his team at this point. It could be a case too if they go on a losing streak of, let's say, they've already lost 2. If they lose 4 to 5 in a row, that could be a case of Thibodeau overworking his players. I mean, Randall has been playing almost nonstop. He's played every game, which is a different different subject matter when it comes to load balancing. But Randall knows full well he needs to play every game to win. Some of these other players like, yeah, I don't need to play. I need to rest up, etc. But that's a bunch of BS load balancing stuff. I mean, players, especially superstars. Fans come in to play to watch these superstar players to play, and they're sitting out. I mean, if you're spending like $200 a ticket and they're not playing, especially if you're bringing your kid, or if you're a kid and you have that, it's like, why? Why? That makes no sense. I mean, honestly, it's like telling the players, like, you know what? Yeah, we're not gonna show up for this game. You know what? Because we feel like, the fans themselves, like, we feel like taking a rest from you guys. And then the team probably was like, whoa, what the hell? Like, where's our home court? There goes the home court advantage at that point. Honestly, that would be great to see. Basically, if like fans just for one game, decide not to come at all, and let's see what happens. I mean, it would be almost similar to what the bubble was, but at that point, home field advantage goes away out the door for these superstar players at that point. And they're like, well, what just happened? I'm like, well, you know what? We felt not playing at that point. But I digress. I'm digressing anyways. But the fact is, like, Thibodeau is overplaying his players, I think. Honestly, you have a lot of people on the bench. They can play. Thibodeau can play some of the players, like Toppin is one for that matter. I mean, I haven't seen Toppin playing as much. It'd be great if he could put him back into the rotation again and let him work himself up to the point if he can work himself up to a point where the Knicks can use him as trade capital for draft capital or players for that matter. That'd be great. The Brunson deal, of course, looking like what it is right now, it's looking like a steal for the Knicks. And the Mavs had the shot and they just let it go, and they realized they knew they goofed. They made 2 massive mistakes. One, they let Brunson get signed away, and then they traded off KP Porzingis to the Washington Bullets, and he's doing decently well now. Honestly, if Porzingis was back with the Mavs, and you had Luka with Kyrie Irving, I think things might be a little bit different. It might be a different narrative with the Mavericks at this point. But coming back to the Knicks, I mean, yeah, you know what? The Nets, they're pretty much not. They're probably gonna lose the rest of their games to the point where, like, they're either gonna be in the playoffs or out of the playoffs. If they are out of the playoffs, I don't think the Nets will take it as too much of a big issue. Honestly, the fact that they lost their stuff, I think they're back into the rebuilding mode again. Of course, at this point, the Knicks. I love Thibodeau, what he's doing. I love his coach's style. But the problem is, I also am worried about the fact that he overworks his players. And we saw it 2 years ago when the Knicks made the playoffs. They pretty much collapsed in the playoffs against Atlanta. That was a game where it should have been a close series, quite honestly. I think the players were just flat out exhausted from playing hard throughout the entire season, that by the end of that season, they were just flat out exhausted. I mean, it's a case where, like, Randall, not sitting him out, but maybe letting him play maybe 10 minutes at least here and there. 10 minutes at most. Same thing with Brunson. Maybe letting him play 10 minutes here and there. Like, I know every game counts, but if you know you're going to have the 4th seed locked up at that point, or 5th seed locked up, it's 5th seed locked up, then you know what? Yeah, play the players here and there. Like, give them some rest here and there. Not rest for the day, but at least rest during the game. As in, let them play 10 minutes at least, or 15 minutes. They don't have to play, like, throughout the entire four quarters. They could just play the first quarter, the second quarter, and parts of the fourth quarter if they're in a close game. If it's a blowout, then you could sit them out at that point, honestly. They don't have to go that hard. I mean, yeah, you want to play them in the first quarter just to keep up the momentum and such. But anyways, but it's hard to say because, like, then it comes back down to the load balancing. Like, do you want to basically load management? Sorry, not load balancing, but load management. Do you want the players to basically sit out games? Part of me thinks yes, but part of me thinks no, because the fans came by to pay. They paid good money to watch those players play. For them sitting out at that game, it kind of sucks for that aspect. So Um, it's a double edged sword in this situation. But I'll say this: if the Knicks lose against the Clippers and against the Lakers, the real question is like, let me see. I don't. I got to take a look and see what the remaining schedule is. Honestly, New York. Sorry, I don't have it on front of me, unfortunately. They go against the Clippers, Lakers, Trailblazers. If they can't beat the Trailblazers, and they're not going to beat the Nuggets. We know that for a fact in New York next week. They're not beating the Nuggets. The Timberwolves, if John Morant is not back, they should be able to beat the Timberwolves. The Miami Heat, I think they could beat the Miami Heat for sure. But quite honestly, if if they can't beat the Clippers, Lakers, and Trailblazers, and they lose those remaining three games, they're on a 5-game losing streak. I mean, they'll definitely be on a 6-game losing streak. They'll drop from the fifth seed, most likely down to the sixth seed at that point. Which, as a Knicks fan, I start worrying at that point. I do start worrying at that point if they're dropping, because at that point the question is like, how did they get out of the funk at that point? Honestly, um, let me see. After Miami, no. Cleveland again. They beat Cleveland. They beat Washington, the Pacers, New Orleans, and Indiana. Okay, and Houston. Yeah, that they can still maintain that fifth seed, but ideally, I would prefer them have that fourth seed. More ideally, I'd prefer them to have the third seed. To be quite honest, if they could get that third seed, that would be much far more better than what everyone would expect at that point. Honestly, because quite honestly, having that third seed plays a huge factor. Let's not forget that. I mean, the 76ers are within striking distance for the Knicks. They can come over the 76ers. I mean, Harden and Embiid. I think Embiid is injured for the next game anyway, so he's going to sit out. But they can take it out. They can take the Sixers at that point. Now, the real question comes down to is with the Sixers, will Doc Rivers come back with the Sixers, or does he leave at that point as well too? Do the Sixers keep him, or do they, go in another direction? If Doc Rivers becomes eligible again, free to manage any other team, I was gonna say the Knicks. If I'm the Knicks, I would go after him, but I'm happy with Thibodeau too. But if I'm the Nets pick up Doc Rivers. They go after Doc Rivers at that point. But outside of that, yeah, there's not much else to say at this point. I mean, honestly, it's just me ranting against the Knicks. They lost 2 in a row. Chances are they're probably going to lose 4 in a row. They lose 4 to 5 in a row. They're definitely losing 6, and then they're officially on a losing streak. And then the question is, will they be able to maintain that sixth seed at that point? But with that, I'll leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts on this. Do you think the Knicks will keep the fifth seed, maintain the fifth seed? Do you think they could get the fourth seed, or even the third seed for that matter? Or do you think if they're on a losing streak, will they drop to the sixth seed at that point and it'll be an uphill battle for them? Again, I do read all my comments. Leave your feedback in the comments, or leave your comments in the comment section. Of course, I do read them. I do respond to them. Also, if you do enjoy my talks, granted it's a little unformatted. It's not really well formatted, not really rehearsed out, but that's the style of my videos. It's usually unrehearsed, unedited, and definitely unfiltered. And when I mean unfiltered, not unfiltered into the point of like me talking, like cursing and all that stuff. It's more unfiltered as like, no filtered backgrounds or anything like that at this point. Usually that's what it is. Unedited means I won't take the best of. I mean, like if I make a mistake, I'm just gonna go through it. I'm gonna treat it like as though it's alive. I will eventually start putting in graphics and such. I mean, more often than not, I'll be talking about sports as well as tech related stuff. More often than not, I'm probably gonna gear towards the tech stuff. But if there anything related to sports, and I'm not too happy or I am thrilled, I will jump in and I'll talk about that as well too. Politics, I kind of try to stay away from it, but there are some stuff that are just too good to pass up on. Anyways, with that, if you do enjoy my talks, basically please subscribe. I don't know why I just went down like that, because honestly, if you're on your phone, it's not going to be down there. If it is, that's great. If you're on a laptop or you're looking through a web browser, I'm thinking it's there or there. Anyways, with that, I'll just leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, and unrehearsed. Until next time. And why won't this stop?